opportunities for Wisconsin's workers, help our seniors stay in their homes, lower the burden of student debt for our graduates, and help working families cover the cost of childcare. Well, now my opponent wants to take us back by raising taxes and undoing the reforms that help fuel our comeback. We can't afford to turn back now. That's why I asked for your vote on November 6th, so we can keep Wisconsin working for generations to come. Paid for by Friends of Scott Walker.
Now this news update on Wisconsin Radio Network. I'm Pat Curtis. A big rally this morning for Democrats on the UW-Madison campus.
Please join me in welcoming Vice President Joe Biden.
Biden, introduced there by Tammy Baldwin, said he's sick and tired of the Trump administration. Dane County Sheriff's deputies were sent to a home south of Lodi early this morning and found a man dead. They're calling it a homicide investigation, but say the suspect and victim knew each other and there's no danger to the public. A man who crashed his ultralight plane into a Kenosha County lake hitched a ride home without reporting it, prompting a major emergency response. Kenosha County Sheriff David Beth.
This is a pretty big deal. You can tell by all the fire trucks and all the rescue personnel that are here. They actually sent divers out there, and there were boats out there. There's several fire departments here.
It happened late Monday afternoon. It's unclear if the pilot will face sanctions for failing to report the crash. This is Wisconsin Radio Network.
Hi, this is Scott Walker. I love being your governor. Every day is a chance to try and make things better in Wisconsin. And we've come a long way together. More people are working in Wisconsin than ever before. And that means more opportunities for our graduates to stay close to home. Because our economy is strong, we lowered income and property taxes and increased funding for education, worker training, infrastructure, and health care. And with your support, we'll expand opportunities for Wisconsin's workers, help our seniors stay in their homes, lower the burden of student debt for our graduates, and help working families cover the cost of childcare. Well, now my opponent wants to take us back by raising taxes and undoing the reforms that help fuel our comeback. We can't afford to turn back now. That's why I asked for your vote on November 6th, so we can keep Wisconsin working for generations to come. Paid for by Friends of Scott Walker.
Hi, folks. This is State Senator Scott Fitzgerald. It's been my honor to represent you in the state Senate. I've worked hard to expand our economy, create jobs, and eliminate wasteful government spending. I believe that if we reduce taxes and let you keep more of your money, the state will be in a much better position to prosper. We've reformed our government in Wisconsin over the last 8 years, and our state is now a leader in the Midwest. Let's not turn back. I'm asking for your vote on November 6th, paid for by Scott Fitzgerald for Senate.
Discover buried treasure, discover fun at Cave of the Mounds. See this geologic wonder that was hidden for ages. Daily tours pass a stunning array of colorful crystal formations on paved lighted walkways. Dig for treasure, discover fossils, hike the trails, or stroll the gardens. Experience monthly themed events for adults including live music, Wisconsin tastings, and more. Join us for our popular Cave After Dark series and new summer soirees. Open year-round. Cave of the Mounds, just 25 miles west of Madison.
1238 from AM 1430 WBEV, streaming online at dailydodge.com. It is time now for today's community comment. Here's your host, Craig Warmbold.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Welcome to Community Comment. On Community Comment today, we wrap up our look at the two state legislative races that are having an impact in the Beaver Dam Dodge County area. We started last week, Monday, sitting down with the Democratic candidate in State Senate District 13, Michelle Zahn. On today's program, we welcome into the conversation the Republican incumbent in State Senate District 13, Scott Fitzgerald. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
We begin these programs by our listeners and our viewers on dailydodge.com under the video tab. Tell them a little bit about yourself, basically. Biographical information, your background, your history in politics, some of the things that you're doing on committees now. Obviously, as the state senator, you have a lot of a resume to get through. We don't have a time limit on this opening biographical resume segment, so feel free to tell us about yourself if you would.
Grew up in Eustis-Ford, went to John Eustis Elementary, and then graduated from Eustis-Ford High School in 1981. From there, went to the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, where I graduated in 1985 with a degree in journalism. It was right around that time that some of your listeners, viewers, probably remember that my dad, Steve Fitzgerald, decided to enter politics by running for Dodge County Sheriff back in 1988, and against longtime incumbent who had kind of been in and out of office, Ed Nails at the time. Those are days I kind of look back on fondly right now. Seems like it was pretty tough. We were just discussing, sheriff's races in Dodge County are always have been kind of interesting and back and forth. But my dad was successful in 1988, which was kind of my introduction, I think, and my family's introduction to politics. And remember helping my dad with a lot of those elections over the years, and kind of got the bug myself. And then in 1992, another longtime Beaver Dam resident and kind of, an institution in Beaver Dam, John Oman, approached me about possibly running for the chairman of the Dodge County Republican Party, and stepped in there and worked with a lot of the Republicans in Dodge County at that time. So then in 1994, Senator Barb Lorman kind of hesitated in announcing whether or not she was going to seek re-election. So I jumped into that race, which was a Republican primary for the 13th Senate seat. And a lot of Dodge County residents will remember Herb File, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. Herb jumped into that too, so it was a three-way primary, and I was lucky enough to be successful in that primary to then go on and win that general election. And I've been in that seat, the 13th state Senate seat, ever since then, representing Dodge, Jefferson, Waukesha, Columbia. Believe it or not, that at one time the 13th state Senate district went all the way down to Milton, that far south, and so I had Jefferson and Fort Atkinson in those communities. And now is reconfigured in the last redistricting, so it goes more east-west. Still have most of those counties, but also includes part of Dane County. So I have about half of DeForest as well. So, but have really enjoyed serving the residents of those counties that make up the 13th state Senate seat. And I've had just about every committee assignment, I think, that you could possibly imagine at one time or the other. The one thing I always remind people in the time I've been in the state Senate, I've been in and out of the majority 12 times. It does flip back and forth because of the slim one or two seats, one way or the other. And right now in the state Senate, we're at 18-15. But have been Republican leader now for the last 12 years in the state Senate, and have been the majority leader for the last 8. So really enjoy the job, really enjoy the constituent work. I think I have a great office in Madison that has been able to be responsive to the district. And obviously we've been through some real ups and downs here in Wisconsin as far as public policy decisions, tough decisions. Act 10 obviously was probably the tip of that. And then, but we've really, I think, worked hard, and I've enjoyed those years in the state Senate. So, been very fortunate. Live in between Juneau and Eustis Ford, off of County DJ. My wife Lisa and I have a farm there, and we have 3 sons: Scotty, Brendan, and Connor, who went to school here in Dodge County.
Why'd you decide to run for another 4-year term?
Again, I think anybody who's in elected office, one of the decisions you make kind of as you go along, and it's such a specific type of cycle for Wisconsin with a biennial budget that is drafted and authored by the governor of the state, and then usually unveiled sometime in mid-February. The legislature in this state, we do the vast majority of our work in that document. It's a massive, comprehensive document that I've always argued has probably more of a direct impact on Wisconsinites' lives than any other piece of public policy that's developed. I don't care if it's at the federal level or at the state level. And it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge over the last 12 years, I would say, even whether I was in the majority or in the minority. Part of that is as a result of the uptick in the economy, or certainly in '08 when we saw everything kind of come to a crawling kind of almost month-by-month budgeting process, which many states experience as well as Wisconsin. But I think we've crawled back out of that hole, and we certainly, I think, have put Wisconsin in a not just a much better position than what I would say other states around us are in, but probably the best position that any Midwestern state finds itself in right now. Whether it's unemployment, 7 straight months at 3% or lower, you've got a state budget with a $547 million surplus, which I'm very proud of. That includes dollars that have been set aside, which are in our rainy day fund, as well as a $65 million opening balance, which will be available to the new legislature and the new governor that's seated in January. Healthcare quality, there's a lot of talk about healthcare related to these elections. All you have to do is obviously turn on the radio or turn on your TV, and you're inundated with commercials right now related to healthcare. But the one thing that is kind of missing in that discussion right now is the overall healthcare quality. Not my definition, as defined by a lot of independent ratings. And then K-12 education, which we put another, in just this last budget, another $635 million, so a huge investment in K-12. But I always go back to the idea that K-12 is a big part of our state budget. It's always hovered around 50% of all the spending in Wisconsin is related to K-12, tech colleges, and the UW system. So it's something Wisconsinites feel strong about, and something that we need to continue to invest in. UW tuition, we're on our 6th year of a freeze. We're trying to make college in Wisconsin more affordable for families, and I think we have done that. We've also tightened down the screws on the UW system and the amount of general purpose revenue they receive and what they do with that. 4 years ago, the UW kind of got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and that was a $1 billion surplus that had been squirreled away. Now, after digging into that a little bit deeper, I think what we came up with was, there were some campuses managing that a little bit better than others. But again, UW system is another area that I think we'll continue to scrutinize and to watch very closely. Then state tourism is, one of our big 3 here in Wisconsin. We have a very diverse economy, and as a result of that, we watch those sectors very closely, and agriculture, tourism, and light manufacturing are those 3, and they will continue to be kind of our backbone. Our diversity makes us strong as well, because when you look at other states that are not that diverse, they're a little bit quicker to go into an economic downturn and a little bit slower to come out of it. I've always been proud of the idea that I think we have worked hard to try and put together kind of that quilt, if you will, to say, hey, listen, we want to be responsive to the private sector, and government should be responsive to that and support those different sectors.
Let's explore some of those topics a little bit more in depth. Maybe start with education. You mentioned Act 10. What are your thoughts about the current state funding formula when it comes to the breakdown between state revenues, the local portion that's due, and maybe more specifically, speak to the $635 million. We had your opponent on last week, and the number that schools are getting nowadays is still below where it was before Act 10 went into place. I want to give you an opportunity to speak to that in this greater context of education funding and the $635 million that you referenced.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of Governor Walker's kind of leadership. He came back to say, listen, okay, we inherited a huge deficit. 9.3% unemployment under Governor Doyle, double-digit increases when it came to taxes, I don't care if you're talking about corporate income or personal property. And then, they had $10.7 billion, which he rated the transportation fund to kind of scrape together the dollars that he needed to say we were going to put more money into K-12. He abandoned two-thirds funding. Governor Doyle abandoned it. The Democrats, who had full control at the time, abandoned the idea of two-thirds funding. Not only did they abandon it, but never really made any effort to kind of revisit that. And part of it was because the economy, and I got to say, economic growth in Wisconsin had completely fallen apart. The old Department of Commerce, prior to the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, had run in the ditch. And they were down to Governor Doyle making phone calls to CEOs begging them not to leave the state, kind of Hail Marys, if you will. So everything had ground to a halt. And so when we had to pick up the pieces, there was obviously some difficult decisions made that weren't popular with everybody, and Act 10 was one of them. We found a way of trying to come up with not only a public policy change, but a way of moving more dollars and consistently giving local school districts the tools, as it is, to try and be more efficient and come up with a better strategy when it came to funding K-12. And we it worked. It worked. It was very successful and put us in a better position. This last time around, because the economy is growing, because we're seeing these three sectors that I just mentioned all doing very, very well, Governor Walker and then ultimately the legislature through the budget process thought it was the time to kind of once again make a huge investment in K-12. And now there is more money going into K-12 education in Wisconsin right now than ever in the history of the state. It is a mix of property tax, obviously, but the general purpose revenue, that investment is always what kind of makes the difference in this discussion. And certainly I think we were able to do that. So, there's this swirling kind of political rhetoric that continues where, oh my gosh, the Republicans have cut K-12 education, but the facts don't bear that out. The facts show that there's more money in K-12 right now than has ever been there before, and a record number of referendums that are being passed statewide. Beaver Dam is certainly one of the communities that has been able to approach the voters directly and make the case. I make no judgment on that. I think we've got a lot of different opinions on that when it comes to the legislature. But once again, I think the investment has been made, and it's put our schools in a good position right now.
You have no position on the number of referendums that are in the state. Some say it's in response to a lot of the revenue caps that are already in place. It's kind of the only option these school districts have. Are we seeing too many? Is this what the intention was when the system was set up? What are your thoughts?
So a good friend of mine, Senator Dewey Strobel from West Bend, has probably been the leader in trying to come up with different ways of, I think, trying to be responsible in, making sure that the taxpayers are protected, and to make sure that there isn't some type of runaway type of marketing campaign used to influence that process. And Senator Strobel will continue. I think he just about the last couple of months has once again began to talk about the idea that if the Republicans come back in control in November, he's going to roll out a number of these bills again. I think you'd find a mixed bag depending on which Republican legislator you're talking to. My position has always been, listen, if the taxpayers of that school district think it's worth it, and are curtailed in the scope and definitive on the scope so that people understand what they're voting on, I still think it's something that should be available to schools.
You mentioned health care, certainly a big issue in this election. What role do you think the state legislature should play in providing health care for all individuals and families?
Well, it's there's always a level of frustration, I think, when you talk to state legislators, whether you're in Wisconsin or any other state legislature, because so much of our health care is still driven by the federal government. Both Medicaid and Medicare dominate the landscape. And as long as that has been the situation, oftentimes state legislatures are forced to approach the feds kind of with hat in hand saying, we need a number of waivers. And it's been a mixed bag. If you go all the way back to President Clinton, there was some work that was done between the federal government and the states that made some sense, gave us more flexibilities. Then under President Bush, George W. Bush, there was the same type of development where there was a push to say, listen, if the states want to do something unique with Medicaid, let's let them do that. If they have a pharmaceutical program, let's let them do that. And then under President Obama, again, I'm not gonna knock the Obama administration because there was some give and take again in allowing states to develop their own strategies, right up until probably the Affordable Health Care Act, when that was rolled out, and because it completely changed everything related to health care, not only delivery but how that was going to be funded. It's been a different deal. It's been a different play by the states because what we were doing was, for the most part, dismantled. So even some of these waivers under Clinton or Bush or Obama that had been developed at one point, a lot of those were undone. And so since then, we do kind of sit back and watch what Congress does. We have to react we are in a reactionary period again here because of either inactivity by Congress or that might be made at the executive level, whether you agree or disagree with those. But here we are again in the state legislatures throughout the nation trying to pick up the pieces. And you know, some of that has worked and some of it has not. But, you know, as you see, especially with, 7 days left before an election, and literally like the political dialogue is completely filled with discussions about health care. I think we've done a very good job in this state. We have a very diverse market when it comes to health care delivery, which you don't see in other states. I always tell people that. I said, listen, if you look at health insurance products and the funding of those products in our state, you're looking at anywhere from 14 to 18 different companies or corporations that are involved in that, and then ancillary businesses that kind of feed into that. If you look at Michigan, it's Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's it. And nobody can really claim that they created that competitiveness, but it certainly has been part of our market in Wisconsin that doesn't exist in other states. So unless you're talking about a strict Medicaid, Medicare formula that locks in residents without any waivers, it's going to be hard, I think, to say that Wisconsin has not done a good job in this. We've created some programs that Wisconsinites love. Senior care is probably the best one. It doesn't matter who's in charge of Madison. It doesn't matter who the majority leader is in the state Senate. Senior care has been something that has been wildly popular. It's a one-pager. People love it. They're able to understand that program well. So it doesn't matter who you are. We support that 100%. We always will moving forward because it's had great success. And Wisconsin has become a model for many other states in that one area of healthcare.
What is your position on pre-existing conditions and requirements?
There was a bill that passed in the Assembly back in April that is kind of a precursor to what would happen if for some reason the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare, repealed. That bill, if it was put on the floor of the state Senate, which I anticipated probably will come back no matter who's in charge after the November elections, I would assume that you would have almost unanimous support for that bill. I think we've come accustomed. There's a couple of things the Affordable Health Care Act has done that I think not only Wisconsinites but everyone nationwide has become accustomed to. And pre-existing conditions is one of them. Now I will say this. I mean, we're used to it in Wisconsin because we had the high-risk pool before Obamacare. HRSP, as it was known, protected Wisconsinites, and even if their premiums didn't match up because they were just too high for people to afford, that's when the state stepped in and picked that premium up and funded that for those individuals, and we loved it. It was a great program. We were all very proud of it, but unfortunately the Affordable Health Care Act, when it came in, dismantled that. So we've gone back to trying to figure out exactly what that should look like. A reinsurance plan, as it's referred to, is a way for, it's the same type of model that existed under HRSP, but this reinsurance plan simply aids some of the insurance companies who are going to say, you know, hey, listen, we can't continue to operate under this model. We're just going to walk away from it. We can't have that. We need these health insurance companies to remain engaged and insure these individuals that have pre-existing conditions. And we're gonna continue to work on that. We have a reinsurance program now. By the way, that was granted as a result of a waiver that we got from the Trump administration. So there again, these waivers can work. And I think we're in a great position right now, no matter what happens with the Affordable Health Care Act and that lawsuit. No matter if the legislature has to come in and pick up the slack and pass that, we're prepared to do that. And at the same time, we've got this waiver with the reinsurance program. So I think we're in a great place right now. I understand that the rhetoric is heavy because of the political season, but you know, it's kind of, I've seen Governor Walker a couple times now, both in prepared, you know, ads that he's running right now and on behalf of himself or his own campaign, pledging that when it comes to, you know, this entire situation, that Wisconsin will be insuring those individuals.
State Senator Scott Fitzgerald, the Republican incumbent in State Senate District 13, our guest here on Community Comment today. He's being challenged by Democrat Michelle Zahn, who was our guest on last week's Community Comment program. Both of these programs will be available in audio and video format at dailydodge.com immediately following the conclusion of today's interview. I want to remind our listeners joining us on AM 1430 WBEV that if you would like to watch today's program, you can go to dailydodge.com. It's under the video tab. We are video streaming live. Also, please note that the video will be podcast there as well. You could always hear audio at dailydodge.com as well. A couple things to keep in mind. State Senator Scott Fitzgerald and I will be returning after the break.
Why do patients choose Prairie Ridge Center for Orthopedic Excellence for joint replacement surgery? Improved quality of life.
I had extreme knee pain because it was bone on bone. The surgery at Prairie Ridge was quick, it was efficient. Thanks to Prairie Ridge, I have no pain at all, and I've reclaimed my life.
Columbus Community Hospital and Prairie Ridge Health Clinic offers a 5-star, top-performing, high-quality program that will help you reclaim your life.
Now also serving in Marshall.
AM 1430 WBEV Beaver Dam, streaming online at dailydodge.com. Take advantage of the Countryside Ford Quick Lane Works package. Oil change, tire rotation, and free inspection, $39.95. No appointment necessary. Monday through Saturday, Countryside Ford, 330 Transit Road, Columbus.
How does Social Security and Medicare work?
When is it best for you to receive these benefits?
How does this affect you if you want to keep working?
Hi, this is Sandy
and Emily
from Higher Insurance and Estate Planning.
We're hosting a free class to help educate and inform you about Medicare and Social Security benefits and help you decide what's best for your future.
To attend this free course, call us at Higher Insurance and Estate Planning at 887-0580. That's 887-0580.
Going to the dentist can be anxiety-inducing for many. At Dentistry of Wisconsin, Doctors Kotz, Metzger, and Truckenbrode will put you at ease the moment you walk in the door. You will quickly see how friendly and caring the entire staff is, and your worries, well, they'll just slip away. Let Dentistry of Wisconsin calm your fears. Stop in to see them at their Beaver Dam or Waupun locations, or call them at 920-887-2112. Dentistry of Wisconsin, where your smile means more.
This Green and Gold Fix is brought to you by Countryside Auto Group, where savings come standard.
The Packers fell 29-27 to the undefeated Rams this past Sunday in Los Angeles. Green Bay came up just 2 points short of what could have been a season-changing win, even though they failed to pull the upset, and they used this game as a galvanizing moment. Here's linebacker Clay Matthews.
It better be, because, that's the best team in the NFL. And when we play, we hung toe-to-toe with them and had a chance at the end to win it. So, we got to take that moving forward. And I know we lost, but we got to take that that capability and move it forward. And like I said, we've got New England next week. We know that they're, one of the best, if not the best AFC team. So we're going to have to show up again next week and this time get the win.
We'll see if the Packers can spring the upset this Sunday when they travel to Foxborough to play the New England Patriots. Kickoff from Gillette Stadium is set for 7:20.
You can't believe anything DC Dan Cole says because he's a Washington lobbyist who will say anything to get elected. DC Dan's fancy ads don't tell you Cole was a DC lobbyist who handed out big checks to liberal politicians who support sanctuary cities for illegal immigrants. Dan Cole was a bundler for Hillary Clinton, and Dan Cole wants to force Wisconsin families into total government-run health care and double your taxes to pay for it. DC Dan Cole, lying about his record, lying about Glenn Grothman. We can't trust Dan Cole in Washington. Glenn Grothman is getting results for us. Grothman has consistently voted to lower healthcare costs and has always voted to protect those with pre-existing conditions. Glenn Grothman cut your taxes to put more money in your pockets and succeeded in increasing access to trade schools and apprenticeships. Glenn Grothman, honest results for Wisconsin.
I'm Glenn Grothman, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Grothman for Congress.
Increase the value of your home during Menard's Home Improvement Sale. Dakota Pre-Finished Storage Solutions make it easy to create your own custom storage space. From modular systems to pre-finished shelving and even closet kits, there's a Dakota product for every room of your home. 7 3/4 inch deep by 3 foot long pre-finished shelves in 5 finishes are just 99 cents each after rebate. Sale prices are good through November 10th. Now during Menard's Home Improvement Sale.
Save big money at Menard's.
WBEV at DailyDodge.com will pay tribute to our veterans on Friday, November 9th. They'll be telling their stories on our annual Veteran Special, on the air here on WBEV and online at DailyDodge.com. If you're a veteran and would like to share your experience, call the radio station to be scheduled. The Veteran Special airs Friday, November 9th at 12:35 here on WBEV and online on the video tab at DailyDodge.com. Brought to you by Horicon Bank, Kepsel Murray Funeral Home, and by American Bank.
107 from AM 1430 WBEV, streaming online at dailydodge.com. Time for more of today's community comment. Here again is your host, Craig Warmbold.
And our guest is State Senator Scott Fitzgerald, the Republican incumbent in State Senate District 13. He's being challenged by Democrat Michelle Zahn, who was our guest on Community Comment last week, Monday. Both of these conversations will be available at dailydodge.com after today's interview. Also, a note for those just joining us, we are video streaming today's program under the video tab at dailydodge.com. The Taiwanese tech giant Foxconn building a $10 billion LCD screen plant in Mount Pleasant. And state taxpayers committed to spending about $3 billion in job-creating tax breaks, utility and road amenities, and more, with thousands of jobs planned. What is your opinion on the incentives being used to bring the Foxconn plant that is planned in Racine County?
Well, let me start with, let me go back to what I was talking about earlier, which are those sectors that have made up and dominated Wisconsin's economy since the beginning of the state. Clearly, agriculture has been one of those sectors. The second, like I said earlier, has been, for the most part, light manufacturing, but some heavy manufacturing factories that are very well known and high profile. And then the third sector has been tourism, and that's what's made Wisconsin move forward. Last year is the first time I think I heard. Really not only the name Foxconn, but really got to begin to understand the size of that corporation and what they produced and how they produced it. And there was some murmurs about both President Trump, certainly Governor Walker, and then at that time Speaker Paul Ryan, trying to lure or make the case that Wisconsin would be a good place for Foxconn to build a factory in continental United States, which they had been trying to do for many years. And Terry Goh, the CEO of the corporation, really had become a big fan of President Trump. So with that connection, and the both the governor, the speaker, and then also Reince Priebus was chief of staff at the time in the White House for President Trump. With all of those individuals kind of pulling for Wisconsin, we got the good news that Foxconn had made a site selection and was going to locate in southeastern Wisconsin. The reason I was excited about it, and I think many of my colleagues were as well, is because this creates a new sector for Wisconsin, and that would be electronics manufacturing. This is something that for the last 20 years, we have continued to talk about the brain drain, and specifically how our young people attend one of the best university systems in the world, in the UW system, and then we lose them. They go somewhere else. So if you wanted an underlining cause for that, it was because we just didn't have that type of industry or sector that could lure those younger workers and those younger individuals. So Foxconn, when we talked about the size of it and the scope of it, I'm not going to say it was somewhat intimidating, I think, for many of us. But the bottom line, and what I was asking, what any other legislator in the Capitol was asking for was, listen, no tax credits unless they create jobs. Unless they actually create jobs here in the state, they don't get any of the money that would until that's done. It doesn't follow unless that's done. And not only was Terry Goh okay with that, but that was the bottom line for Governor Walker as well. And we have proceeded to move forward under that idea ever since the first discussion or debate about Foxconn. You know, listen, when Terry Goh was in the final stages of making that decision on whether or not to locate here, Mr. Goh was at the governor's mansion. I got to meet him there. I talked to a lot of other individuals that are involved and do work with Foxconn right now, ancillary businesses in other parts of the nation. And I just remember there was a long list of other manufacturers that follow Foxconn no matter where they go. Since then, great success is not only, I think, in the groundbreaking and with a new building being erected in southeastern Wisconsin, but also their outreach, where you've seen a number of corporations statewide. Probably the biggest one in our backyard that's benefiting right now is probably the Michaels Corporation, headquartered in Brownsville. But a number of other types of businesses statewide that are being impacted by this, not only the first phase, which is construction. There's about 400 construction workers working on the Foxconn project right now, and about another 450 workers statewide already that Foxconn has hired to be part of this program that they're working very closely with the Department of Administration in state government to make sure that they have everything they need to get this up and running. This is going to be a destination, and there were some people nervous about this from an employment perspective as well, and I totally understood that. I got to be honest with you, I got some calls from the district about, wait a minute, I'm having a hard time finding somebody to work for $15, $16, $17 an hour now. Where are you going to come up with another 10,000 employees for Foxconn? And what I've tried to describe, and I think there's some other business entities that are trying to describe as well, they're saying, no, listen, this is unique. This is a destination type of industry. So you're going to bring people from Chicagoland. You're going to bring people from Silicon Valley. You're going to see young adults from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area where they're going to relocate. They're going to want to be part of this type of industry. This is going to be cutting-edge stuff, and Wisconsin's going to be part of it. And again, no tax credits until jobs are created, which is our protection that most of us were really focused on. So I am very pleased with how quickly it's moved along. I've been part of a lot of the different discussions along the way when it comes to training, worker training, and how some of the tech college system can be part of that effort. But I think we're going to look back on Foxconn 10 years from now and think, what were we worrying about? My goodness, this has become something that, I'm always worried about. I've been around long enough to know that, the economy is cyclical, and I've gone from being parts of discussions about we need more workers to, oh my gosh, unemployment is starting to tick up again. We need more jobs. So, this is something I think is a game changer for the state. And like I said, 10 years from now, we're going to look back on this and say, this has become something that has really stabilized the state's economy.
A number of municipalities in recent months have adopted resolutions asking the state legislature to close the so-called dark stores loophole. The League of Wisconsin Municipalities defines the loophole as allowing big box stores to lower their property tax bill by having their property assessed as if no one is operating in the business. It's kind of an oversimplification. There's another angle with Walgreens in there as well. But what's your position on this property tax assessment for such stores?
Supreme Court made a ruling, I think caught a lot of us off guard, that basically said the way that municipalities were assessing some of these properties was inconsistent and probably needed to be revisited. So the lawsuit that was originally filed, the plaintiff had success. So what does that do? It kind of creates this, throws the whole thing back in the legislature's lap, and there's an immediate call for, hurry up and pass a bill, slam something through to stop this from happening the way it's been playing out on the street. I think both Speaker Voss and myself, and at that time Governor Walker, although he wasn't directly engaged, I think it was more the legislature's deal, started to work on, what would be the best way to kind of address this or deal with this. And we could not resolve it through the regular legislative schedule. I mean, there were more than enough bills that could make changes. And there's two different parts to this. One deals with triple net leases. I don't want to get too into the weeds or everybody will turn us off. But which deals with certain types of facilities where there's a long-term lease and the occupant has full intention of being there for a number of years, but doesn't own the bricks and mortar. And then there's the other, which are abandoned facilities. And I think we're probably sitting not too far away from probably the best example or the worst situation, which is the old Pick and Save building in Beaver Dam, which that thing must have been vacant for over 20 years at this point. And how do you assess a building like that at this point that's not been occupied for many, many years? Somebody's still picking up the property tax bill, but there's obviously been no business and nothing done with that building for many years. So my point is it's complex, and the assessor's handbook, which there are many different nuances to it, and the way that you kind of can read that, it's subjective, put it that way, needs to be addressed. So I'll just tell you, one of the things that both the speaker and I agreed on, we have a number of Ledge Council study groups, which is a tool that the legislature has to kind of take a longer look at something, or maybe a look from 30,000 feet, which is not the way we view legislation during session. It's typically either red hot or it isn't, and if it's red hot, it kind of moves quickly. So we have been working on that, and that Ledge Council study group, which from my house, Senator Luther Olson chaired that committee, and they met numerous times this summer into the fall. I've spoken to Luther about it numerous times. He believes they've come up with some things that they think may not be considered a full resolve of all the issues, but some very constructive things that could be done between the property owner and the municipalities to kind of set the stage for what ultimately could be a piece of legislation that you would pass this next session. League of Municipalities are way over here, and obviously then you have probably the biggest proponent of some type of resolution, but yet let's not take the approach that other states have taken, is Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce. So we're trying to find a middle ground there, and I think the Ledge Council study probably it worked, and I think it put us in a better position.
Minimum wage, another topic that seems to be coming up around election time. Do you think the minimum wage should be adjusted for inflation annually?
No, I don't think it's needed at all. As a matter of fact, like I said earlier, most employers are at the low end, $10 an hour, but probably closer to 15 if you're really going to be able to get people to come to your business and work for you. So I will say it has been a red hot issue in the past, probably even in the last presidential campaign a little bit, with guys like Bernie Sanders out there selling the idea. But with this red hot economy that we're living in right now, it's kind of an issue that's fallen by the wayside.
State Senator Scott Fitzgerald, our guest, the Republican incumbent for State Senate District 13. His Democratic challenger, Michelle Zahn, our guest on Community Comment last week. Both of the programs will be available after this interview on dailydodge.com. You can also stream this interview at dailydodge.com under the WBEV tab, or you could watch it under the video tab. Again, dailydodge.com. We'll return here in just a few moments with State Senator Scott Fitzgerald.
For long or short-term rehab after surgery, brain injury rehabilitation, and lots more, Clearview is the clear choice. What makes Clearview so special? It all starts with the staff.
Hi, my name is Peggy, and I am starting my 16th year at Clearview. When I hear people complain about their jobs or dread going to work, I realize how very lucky I have been with my career choice at Clearview.
Clearview, just outside Juneau, where patients enter as strangers but leave as friends.
We've lost Governor Walker. We've lost Governor Walker to special interest groups. We've lost Governor Walker to his big business buddies. When we buy gas in Wisconsin, up to 20 cents a gallon or more goes directly to his buddies and not toward fixing our roads. That price markup raises millions of dollars, so big business gets bigger while our roads and bridges suffer. Stop giving away our tax dollars. Fix our roads, Governor. Paid for by Safe Transportation Over Politics.
They'll challenge your authority because that's what kids do. But this car is your territory. And in here, your word is law. So when you say you won't move until everyone's buckled up, you won't budge an inch until you hear that click. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. For more information, visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup.
Get your best price first at Countryside Auto Group in Beaver Dam. It's clearly marked on every windshield during the end of the month sale that ends on Halloween. Countryside has just knocked $12,000 off MSRP on the brand new 2018 Chevy Silverado half-ton crew cab 4x4 LTZ71. You heard right, an amazing $12,000 right off the top, 10 to choose from at this price. And with the purchase of any new or pre-owned vehicle in the month of October, Countryside Auto is donating a portion of the profits to the Beaver Dam Community Hospital Breast Health Program. Make tracks to the end of the month sale at Countryside Auto, exit 135 off 151 north of Beaver Dam, where savings come standard.
Countryside GM Auto Group. We make it easy in Beaver Dam.
Hey Mom, hey Dad, caregivers, everyone. I have something important to tell you. You are your child's #1 brain builder. You see, a baby's brain starts learning right at birth. By kindergarten, 90% of the brain development has already happened. This means you are the single most important person in helping your child's brain grow. You are your child's #1 brain builder. Visit talkreadplaywi.com. Download the free app and start brain building today.
Breaker 19, this here's Daisy May. I read you, Daisy. Where'd you get that handle? Long story. Where you headed? My rig is headed to Carolina. Won't see my family for 2 weeks. I don't care for that any. You should be hauling for us at GG Barnett Transport in Beaver Dam. Well, tell me about it. Over.
If you love driving big trucks and want to be home by the end of the week, contact G.G. Barnett Transport. They're family-owned and operated, and driving is limited to the Midwest. Fulfill your big truck fantasy. Drive for G.G. Barnett Transport. Call 1-800-336-7249.
I want to hear more about this Stacey May thing. Subject closed, over and out.
G.G. Barnett Transport. 1-800-336-7249.
Listen to WBEV online anytime at dailydodge.com. Brought to you by Beaver Dam Piggly Wiggly.
This is AM 1430 WBEV, streaming online at dailydodge.com. Time once again for more of today's community comment. Here's your host, Craig Warmbold.
And our guest is State Senator Scott Fitzgerald, Republican incumbent in State Senate District 13. He's being challenged by Democrat Michelle Zahn, who was our guest on Community Comment last week, Monday. Again, both of these programs will be posted in audio and video formats at dailydodge.com after today's program. And those of you that would like to watch the live video stream can go to dailydodge.com and click on the video tab. Let's talk a little bit in this segment about redistricting. What is your position on the legislative redistricting process in Wisconsin? Do you think elected officials should be responsible for drawing district boundaries, or, there's another number of different options there, but for example, should a nonpartisan third party perhaps be in charge, or any one of the other possible scenarios when it comes to looking at this very complex issue of redistricting?
Per the Constitution in the state of Wisconsin, it's the legislature's responsibility to draw those new maps, both state legislative maps as well as the congressional maps. I still believe that is the place that process should remain. I will say this, I think that whether my colleague, Minority Leader Jennifer Schilling, is the majority leader in drawing the maps, or if it would fall back on the current leadership, it shouldn't even be considered kind of a partisan process, because it's not. So I would support that it remain within the legislature, and we still have the ability to do that. This whole idea of this nonpartisan Iowa model, let me say, first of all, Iowa is not Wisconsin. There is much more diversity in our state, and certainly specific urban areas and outstate areas that are much more difficult than Iowa. But even in that process, Linda Ubmeyer is the speaker in Iowa right now, and I've gotten to know Linda over the years. And all you have to do is talk to any Iowa legislator to ask them about their. I think they chuckle to see just how political it really is, although it's disguised as some nonpartisan process. But no, I still think that it has served us well in the past. It's interesting to me, I said it earlier, I've been in and out of the majority 12 times in 24 years. Anyone who wants to try and make the case that somehow one party benefits from the maps being drawn over another, I think you're not taking a kind of holistic look at it. Beyond that, we just lost 2 seats. The Republicans just lost 2 seats in special elections, both in the 10th up in Hudson, and we lost the 1st Senate seat in Door County, Green Bay, that we're kind of fighting to retain right now in the election cycle. So, it's 18-15 right now in the state Senate. I don't see any party really running away with it here. And as a result of that, whether it's a split legislature where the courts weigh in at some point, I'll still wait to see what happens in the U.S. Supreme Court. I went out to the arguments back in October, and when that ruling came out, they basically said, listen, for this election cycle, we're not going to make any changes to the maps in Wisconsin or many of the other states that were part of that case. But I expect many of the attorneys who watch this closely think that the U.S. Supreme Court will probably rule related to North Carolina, and we'll go from there. But no, I still defend the idea that this is something that's part of our Constitution and should remain there.
Roads, road funding. What's the deal, Senator?
It's a little more complex, I think, than it looks, as most issues are. We're currently waiting to see if Congress will pass some type of infrastructure bill. There's been a lot of discussion about it since President Trump has taken office. There was actually the White House worked on a bill that I thought would bring a change to the way that states are handled when it comes to road transportation funding from the federal government. It's being boiled down to, I think, if you just raise the gas tax, all this would go away. But the fact of the matter is we still have 5 $1 billion projects that need to be addressed in southeastern Wisconsin. We have a number of needs outstate as well. So, some people think that if you would have had a 10-cent gas tax increase related to taxing, that suddenly all this would be fixed. But fact of the matter is it generates, every penny generates about $33 million annually, and that's not enough to deal with this problem. So, state in this pickle, there's a lot of other states in the same situation. We'll see what happens with the elections a week from now. I think there is some momentum for some type of new revenue, whether it's vehicle registration. Probably the one that's garnering the most attention right now is open road tolling. That if you had the federal government allow you to put open road tolling on existing roadways, and in Wisconsin, I think that would probably be the state line between Wisconsin and Illinois. That doesn't just generate a few $1 million, that generates billions of dollars. Open road tolling, obviously, with the I-Pass that many Wisconsinites might be familiar with down on the state line, that's a game changer. And we've been part of some studies where that has been discussed, and I think some of those, the second phase of that study will be back for consideration by this legislature and probably by the new governor, whether it's Governor Walker being reelected or Tony Evers. It'll have to be considered for their next budget. So we'll see where we go. I know there's a lot of frustration at the local level. They think there should be more transportation aids. The governor has already vowed to put more money in, both at the county and municipal and town level. I think the legislature would certainly go along with that.
What's your position on gun control as it relates to semi-automatic weapons and bump stocks?
Well, obviously, another tragedy just this week out in Pittsburgh, which always raises the consideration and the height of the discussion of this. But, I've always continued to say that, we need to first and foremost, measure security. And what this legislature just did in this was put $100 million and made it available for throughout the state to enhance their physical security, to prevent and stop these school shootings that have been going on nationwide. Obviously, there's other types of facilities like, whether it's a church or synagogue, that may have to, continue to look for physical security measures that might tighten the security at those facilities. And then, kind of the last purview that people are still concerned about is just in general kind of the overall reaching issue of crime and whether or not in a state, just discussing the gubernatorial debate, and I saw some comments yesterday from both gubernatorial candidates on concealed carry and whether or not Tony Evers might try to, dial that back. As somebody that currently holds a concealed carry permit, I think the process that we have in place right now is working and is effective. And hopefully, this will have an effect. But I don't think anybody's got the answer right now. I think there's a lot of different things that you could do. But unfortunately, there just doesn't seem to be the political will on both sides to try and consider some options that otherwise wouldn't be on the table. So.
Do you feel drug tests should be given to all people on public assistance?
I do think, I don't know that it's all people, but I mean, what we've talked about in the logistics of this is pretty difficult. That drug testing, random drug testing for those on benefits makes sense. It's a huge investment, I think, that taxpayers put into many of these benefits, and as a result of that, I think it shouldn't be necessarily mandatory. But I think once again, people on those benefits should know that, hey, we want to know you're clean. We want to know you're looking for a job, and especially in the economy that we're operating in right now, it should be something that I think is part of that program.
Should able-bodied adults be required to work, increase job searches, or undertake job training to collect food stamps?
Absolutely. And if you've got a SNAP card and you're part of that system and you're looking for a job, I think that should be something that the taxpayers are aware of. We should know exactly what type of progress somebody is making in that area, and if they need help. I mean, no one is trying to say that anybody on public assistance should have to immediately do a 180 and turn their life around. But we should be able to offer these people different things that could put them in a better position to make good decisions. And a lot of times that's childcare, it's transportation, it's their ability to receive the type of training that employers might be looking for, which are, we keep calling them soft skills right now. But the idea that you get up in the morning and that you show up on time and that you're reliable, it's interesting because I think if you talk to many employers, whether it's Dodge County or anywhere in the state, a lot of times they're saying, listen, we don't need somebody that comes to us fully trained. We need somebody that has those soft skills. That means they're going to be responsible, they're going to be clean when it comes to drug testing, and that, at the end of the day, they will work with them to make them a good employee.
What are your thoughts about the state's prison population? Do we need to look at penalties that we have in place for nonviolent offenders and victimless crimes?
I don't have a problem looking at and reviewing the statutes related to that, or that DOC should be involved in discussions about making changes there. And I do believe that within the correction system, we need to continue to have a dialogue about making sure that those facilities are safe, specifically for our correctional officers. And I've heard from a lot of correctional officers that they don't feel that they're always in a safe environment. And that's got to be, if you're a legislator, you better have open ears when it comes to corrections and whether or not the employees of the state that run those facilities feel safe there. We've got some work shortages. We need to deal with that. I think DOC has been dealing with that. And then the other thing is to revisit the entire idea of new facilities, which the legislature has commissioned a study that I think will result in probably recommendations that are going to say, listen, some of these old antiquated facilities, which are labor intensive too, by the way, compared to some of the new models, that we need to build. We probably need to build a prison in Wisconsin and continue down a path of reviewing and maybe rebuilding some of these antiquated facilities. The idea that Waupun is up and running, that building, for a lot of people, I think they look at that and they say that's the best example of probably a facility that we need to, at some point, start to phase out and replace.
Should we be putting marijuana offenders in prison?
Well, I don't want to legalize marijuana. I'm seeing it kind of run through the entire nation, and I've never been a supporter of it. I don't think you'd find a lot of law enforcement officers that think it's a good idea as well, whether it's by prescription or recreational. I think there's 12 counties in the state right now that have some type of referendum question on the ballot next week that deals with legalization. I just think it's not something that this legislature is going to pass. Beyond that, obviously there's a national debate going on, and with what Canada just did, it's going to continue to be at the forefront. But I don't see the legalization happening anytime soon.
Is the state doing enough to combat the opioid crisis? What more could be done?
Can always do more. But I will say the HOPE agenda, which for the most part was formulated by one of our members in the Assembly, John Nygren, he has worked with not only law enforcement, but all other entities that might have some piece of this puzzle. I'll tell you, one of the probably one of the most productive conversations I've had in and around this as of late was actually with Kelly Thompson, who is the head of the Public Defender's Office, who described the state to me by saying, right now, opioids are a huge problem south of Highway 29, but if you get above Highway 29 and you go up and down the river, suddenly it's meth. So there's been a ton of focus specifically on the opiates, not only in Wisconsin but in many other states. But meth is just as big an issue for us, and it just doesn't garner the headlines. And I think if you talk to law enforcement, you'll hear that it's still a huge issue, but we have passed a number of bills that makes it easier for law enforcement and district attorneys to be able to handle this issue.
A state agency last year said it can no longer enforce a rule that requires fire sprinklers for apartment buildings with 3 to 20 units. The Department of Safety and Professional Services cites a state law that says agencies cannot write and enforce rules stricter than what the law actually says. And the last law passed by the governor and legislature called for sprinklers only in buildings with 20 or more units. Some fire officials, including the Beaver Dam Fire Chief, say it's a bad idea not to have sprinkler systems inside apartments with less than 20 units. Do you feel the law needs to be addressed to require sprinklers in such apartment units?
Well, I think the rule needs to be addressed first of all, and sometimes what you need to match up is the scope of the legislation and the intent of legislation along with the rule. So this is the classic example of rulemaking that probably got away from us. So I know that there's a lot of effort kind of behind the scenes right now to either try and mitigate or come up with some type of resolve for this. But yeah, I still think that, what you're going to find is that many of the legislators in Madison are concerned and watching this very closely in case we have to make a more specific public policy decision that would supersede any of the rulemaking going in and around sprinklers right now. So,
finally today, why should voters in State Senate District 13 select Scott Fitzgerald to continue being their senator?
Yeah, I think it goes back to where we're at, and it's probably the same case that's being made by Governor Walker and other legislators throughout the state. It deals with many of the bigger topics that voters are very familiar with, which I think the Republican majorities, and specifically the way I vote in the legislature to represent the 13th district, it's about unemployment, it's about state budget, the state budget, and what a great place we are. All you have to do is look to the south, look to Illinois. Just take a look down there and see what the mess they've created and what a debacle it is. Or look to Michigan and look to Minnesota, where they've had massive tax increases in Minnesota under a Democrat governor. The tax burden has continued to be in check. Many people, I think, if they look at their property tax bills, they have remained steady or have gone down in the last 8 years. You got K-12 education. I think, once again, we've made a huge investment there. So we're lowering taxes at the same time we're putting more money into education. You're not going to see that. You didn't see it under Governor Doyle. You're not going to see that under any other mix that I think you could find in the Capitol with either a split legislature or Tony Evers as governor. And then state tourism and every investment we make kind of within the UW system. Just about on all fronts, Wisconsin is in a great place right now, which makes it almost mind-boggling for me that Governor Walker is in as tight a race as it appears to be, when you've got people, Wisconsinites are working and the economy is doing very well, which usually is the measuring stick on many elected officials for whether or not they're doing a good job right now. But I would ask for people's vote again because I think we're on the right track. I think we've got Wisconsin on the right track, and I think that'll continue under Republican leadership.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Once again, State Senator Scott Fitzgerald, the Republican incumbent in State Senate District 13. His challenger, Democrat Michelle Zahn, was our guest last week, Monday, on Community Comment. Both of these conversations will be available in audio and video format at dailydodge.com this afternoon. I do want to thank our guests for joining us today and last week, Monday. Also, a plug for the candidates in State Assembly District 39. We had both the Republican incumbent Mark Bourne and his Democratic challenger Alicia Barudin on the program midweek last week, and both of those conversations are already up at dailydodge.com. You can listen to and watch both of those community comment programs. In the meantime, again, I want to thank State Senator Scott Fitzgerald for joining us. Thank you very much. That is going to do it for today's community comment.
Listen to WBEV online anytime at dailydodge.com. Brought to you by Beaver Dam Piggly Wiggly.
She's mean and she's offensive. She's profane and divisive. She tweets out nasty missives, and Groves Lloyd is extreme. She voted for a socialist. She calls our country terrorist. She ought to be embarrassed, and Groves Lloyd is extreme. Da-da-da-dum.
At a time when our community should be coming together, Lodi Alderwoman Ann Groves Lloyd is saying outrageous things to tear us apart, personally calling political opponents terrorists and cheering on others who called them Nazis and children of Satan, and said people who differed with her on tax policy should be damned to hell. We deserve better from our public officials. Call Alder Lloyd at 608-592-4527 and tell her you want civility and unity, not her brand of hate and division.
And Groves Lloyd is extreme.
Paid for by Jobs First Coalition, Inc.
You've had your bow restrung and sighted. Your camo hangs like a flag celebrating the hunt to come. From September 16th to November 9th, your phone goes right to voicemail. But after you drag the trophy buck home, it's time to share the spoils. And no one prepares your deer for a victory meal quite like Pernat's. For over 36 years, Pernat's has skinned, cut, wrapped, and frozen deer for all triumphant hunters. Process your deer for only $70. Then savor Pernat's award-winning creations like summer sausage, hot sticks, jerky, cheddarwurst, brats, bacon, and more. Hard work never tasted so good. During bow season, Pernat's has after-hour drop-offs at all 3 of their locations and is your deer donation destination. Visit Pernat Hassey Meats in Juneau, Pernat's Premium Meats in Johnson Creek, and Pernat's of Ixonia in Ixonia, or visit them online at pernats.com.
Hello, I'm State Representative Mark Bourne. I understand the significant role agriculture plays in our Wisconsin